Mr. Speaker, I just returned from leading a fact-finding delegation to Colombia, October 3rd to the 8th. I've traveled to Colombia a dozen times since 2001. This time I traveled to Cali, a city still reeling from intense protests this past spring and the security forces' excessive response. It was my second visit to Cali and my third to the specific region. I met with the mayor of Cali, the Catholic Archbishop, youth who had protested, families whose children were killed during the protests, local journalists, and human rights defenders. I then traveled an hour south to the town of Santander de Quilichao in northern Cauca. The Department of Cauca leads Colombia in killings of social leaders and former combatants. There I met with the UN verification mission team monitoring implementation of the peace accord and had a lengthy talk with the town's mayor. I spent the most time with Afro-Colombian, indigenous, campesino, women's, and LGBTQ organizations. The next day I visited the San Juan community in Suma Paz, a formerly guerrilla-controlled region in the Andes Paramo, 3 hours south of Bogota. I traveled with representatives of Bogota's mayor, whose jurisdiction includes Suma Paz. I saw water projects being carried out by campesinos, indigenous, and former combatants. And I attended a town meeting where everyone was free to have their say. In Bogota, I met with our embassy and President Duque, leaders of the Colombian police, the UN and the OAS, the International Committee of the Red Cross, U.S. and Colombian security analysts, Colombian members of Congress, human rights defenders, and journalists. I returned disturbed and worried, Mr. Speaker. I'm deeply concerned about the state of human rights, peace, and democracy in Colombia. I will be listening closely to what U.S. officials say on these matters at the high-level bilateral dialogue this week in Bogota. The U.S. has spent over $8.2 billion in taxpayer money on military and security support for Colombia since 2000. Yet large parts of Colombia aren't under government control or have been abandoned by the state. Human rights defenders and local leaders are targeted and killed. Journalists are threatened and subject to illegal surveillance. The drug trade is flourishing and illegal armed groups grow in power. I'm especially concerned by the frustration and fears I heard from organizations that have been fighting for peace for decades, but today feel that things are going in the wrong and very dangerous direction. It is painful to remember the hope they felt during my last visit in 2017 as they made plans inspired by the peace accords and its promise of progress. For them, Colombia has taken a giant step backward, much greater than understood from Washington before my trip. And then there were protests this spring, where we saw the Colombian police react violently to legitimate demands for education, health, food, and jobs. Demonstrators were shot with live ammunition by a police force that receives U.S. aid. ESMAD, the riot police, not a recipient of direct U.S. grant assistance because of its terrible human rights record, used crowd control equipment to wound, maim, and kill demonstrators. Some of this equipment was made in the USA and likely provided through commercial sales, which I believe should immediately stop. Mr. Speaker, what do you say to a woman who asks whether she is still a mother because her only child was killed in the protests? How do you comfort a father whose son served honorably with the Colombian military only to die at the hands of the Colombian police? I am also deeply concerned about the implementation of the 2016 peace accord. The agreement provides a roadmap to address long-standing problems in Colombia, including those that provoked the protests. But it's a comprehensive agreement that must be carried out holistically, not a few parts here and there, while ignoring, undermining, or slow-talking the rest. But there is reason for hope. In Suma Paz, I saw firsthand what a committed local government and an organized community can accomplish to establish peace, security, and development that benefits everyone, not just the privileged few. Mr. Speaker, I am proud of so many of our programs and projects in Colombia. I treasure the friendship between the United States and Colombia. As a friend and an ally, it is critical that the U.S. speak frankly and forcefully about setbacks to peace, the need for serious police reform, and the dangerous human rights situation. If we care about the people of Colombia and their human rights, Congress has a responsibility to take a deep look at the situation inside Colombia and reevaluate the priorities of our aid. I yield back my time.